Here you go, Mark.
And let's see. So, see the stack of. He came back, they got the fault of that Monday night. He said, here's the deal. This lot, this lot, based on this lot, happened this one.
It's not quite 5, but your lots.
That's what we did.
One quick dance, and I got a song in my head.
Ugly calls.
Once I hear it, yeah, it's just like I'll sit around moving my head dancing.
Yeah, he said, listen, I'd like to 20 years. I could walk pretty long one day and just ask him questions. I'm not sure where Melanie went. But he did say about 500 people that tried to buy this house.
All right. May as well call it to order.
It's 4:59. There she is.
All right, we'll wait 20 more. Wait 20 more seconds.
All live, Cody said.
They know what we're talking about.
All right.
All right.
Melanie's from how we can start.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, honey.
Call the December meeting of the Electric Plant Board together. Looks like everyone's here. First order of business is to approve the agenda, which I keep losing. But any additions or changes or concerns? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Have a motion? Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Minutes of the previous meeting, which are here in this group of stuff.
Yeah, I've got just a couple of comments.
Okay.
Just so the board is aware that the approval of these minutes are the bond resolution approving the bond sale are in these minutes. And then also we discussed the going from 2 signatures to 1 on the checks and also the signatories. That information is in these minutes, and so both entities need the approved minutes to do their thing. So these minutes need a little bit more than some, but still pretty standard.
Okay. Any objections to them? Any changes? Hearing none?
On that regard, have you had a chance to talk to Payroll?
Yes. And they said as long as we continue to do an annual audit, which we're required to, that's no problem.
Good. Thank you.
Any other discussion? I guess I need a motion first. Have a motion? Motion. Have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The reappointment of the programming committee is next order of the agenda.
Yeah, this is Carl Napier, who has served for a number of terms on the programming committee, and he's agreed to keep working on with the committee. So,
What was his name?
Carl Napier.
Carl Napier.
Yeah. And it's the recommendation of the programming committee to reappoint him. So,
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Consider the biannual listing of uncollectible accounts and write-offs.
yeah, so I had passed the list of uncollectible accounts. And Melanie, this is we do this every 6 months, is that right? And this list contains roughly 57,000 in write-offs. All the people and businesses that are listed in the list for you to look at. We're not going to have the list really floating around though, but it's for the board to look at and approve. And then what we do with the lists or with these accounts, is we turn them over to a collection agency. And they'll continue to work to recover money, but then, of course, that's shared with the collection agency. So we write them off, and then we turn them over, and then any money that comes back will be added back into our books. But so, is there any other comment that you have? No?
I don't think so. Other than those are 6 months old. So or I guess I should say the latest one is 6 months old. So you're actually looking back 6 months and then the prior 6 months, or almost a year. So we give them that long to make the payment, because sometimes people will move and they, in the process of moving, they forget that they owe the bill, and it'll be brought up, and so that gives them time to make the payment.
So these are the previous 6 months to the last 6 months?
Yes.
Okay.
So for the benefit of myself and new board members, what is typically the amount that we see that we're writing off each 6 months?
Is this typical for a normal
It
year?
is, yeah, that's pretty close. Now, last time it was a little higher. Of course, that had some of the accounts from where we had to suspend disconnects during COVID. We did pretty well on those collections, but it was a little higher than normal. I think it was around 80 to 90 last time, but yeah, around 60 is.
Are most of these people completely left the system?
They have, or they figured out how to get around it, because anytime someone's set service with us, we go and we check to see if they are a primary on an account somewhere or a secondary, because we keep all of that information. If so, then they're required to make some form of payment on that, and then we can set payments up for them.
So are
But we
still-
don't just quit pursuing that. We don't aggressively go after those, but when people set new service, that's when we catch them.
So a couple of years ago, roughly, we voted to somebody who owed an old bill and who wanted to get a new service,
Yes.
that they automatically had to go to pay-as-you-go, and
Yes.
then half of their money would go to the current bill, and then half of it would go to their
Correct.
past bill. Are we still doing that?
We are.
And are we having good luck on collections with that? Awesome. Okay, great.
We do. Yeah, the prepay, there are a lot of benefits to the prepay that we have. Yes, and that's one of the big ones.
So what is the procedure, when do you get cut off if you haven't paid your bill?
So you have a due date, and then there's a grace period, normally around 15 days when the disconnect date is, and then you're disconnected. If you don't make a payment within 7 days, then your account is closed out. And so that's the date that we set as your final date. And 6 months after that, we'll look at financial collection.
Okay, so you don't have electricity, cable, and internet, you said a month after it was due, or is it less than that?
It's less than that, yeah. They have about 15 days, give or take a little bit, from the due date before we do a disconnect.
How do they get $2,000 in debt in 15 days?
Well, of course, if they're a business customer, they can pretty quickly. And then if they have equipment, that adds up
Still
also.
goes. Very good.
Okay, so
Any other discussion?
So
on
that total bill is cable and electricity
Right. That would be all services that they have.
at one time.
Any motion needed for this? We need
Yeah.
to approve the amount or
Yeah,
the write-off.
I would say a motion to approve that list that we're going to write.
I'll make the motion. Let me have that list real quick, so I'll get the amount. No, the list.
Mark.
Mark got it. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mark.
That's all right.
I'll give it back. So I make a motion that we approve the write-offs from December 2020 to May 21 in the, yeah, we'll leave it at that. So I make a motion that we approve this list of write-offs.
And so I think the amount is 57.
$57,156.33.
I'll second that.
Have a second? Any further discussion?
But for clarification, we're not forgiving this debt. We're just taking it off our books.
We'll just
Taking it
take
off
it
our
off the
books. If
books.
it comes back on, it comes on as income.
Yeah, okay.
And collections will get it, and they will continue to try to collect.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Next is the payroll budget for calendar year 22.
Yep, okay, in your packet of information, This is the requested payroll budget for the calendar year of 2022. And if you look at the first line item, the original approved 2021 payroll was roughly $2.8 million. And then during the year, there was board-approved adjustments of $101,000. And those were included things like the additional pay to Melanie. There was some leave payout during the year and so on. So those were adjustments that were made. And so the adjusted budget for 2021 was $2.87 million. Now for the requested to the 2022 payroll, which is really the base pay, and it allows for merit increases. We have things like apprentices that are continuing with their training and moving up the ladder. So this allows for that. And so the requested 2022 payroll is $2,930,092 for an increase over 2021 of 2.08%.
Any discussion?
How close is this adjusted 2021 to actual?
It's within, I think, $3,000.
Okay.
Have a motion to approve the budget?
Wait a minute. So normally, at this time of year, we actually vote on pay increases by like linemen, in different categories. So I know for the adjustments in 2021, part of that was Melanie's compensation for doing 2 jobs. So where is the biggest brunt of this money? Where is the biggest part of that going?
The increase? Mm-hmm. It's going to be with the increase in our midpoint for the journeyman lineman category.
Okay.
Yeah. And everything is based off of that. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a really good system from what I've learned since I've been here. It really does work well.
Yeah.
But that's where the biggest bulk of it is. The reason it's only 2.8% is we're also going to be probably down just a head count or 2 from previous years. So
Okay.
so it's it's a pretty reasonable increase, but the bulk of it is in that midpoint for the lineman pay.
Okay.
Yeah.
This will be probably the lowest increase we have in a long time, because future doesn't look too promising as
Yeah,
far as
well, we'll see what we can do.
inflation goes. Okay, any other? Have a motion to approve this?
So I make a motion that we approve the requested payroll budget for calendar year 2022.
I'll second.
A second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, so this next line item, the purchase of a 1,500 kVA transformer. We were not able to, for this meeting to get even one bid yet, and so.
You get one bid.
Oh, we get it?
Aaron just texted us.
Okay.
35.
That's good, because he was working on it, but
Who made the bid?
I do not.
The Solomon Group?
yeah, wow.
He's waiting for more bids to come in.
So I'll leave this up to how the board wants to handle it. But what happened was on Wednesday when we were shifting the city of Glasgow back to TVA, unrelated, the transformer at the hospital failed. And we had a 1,500 kVA transformer in our yard, and it fit great. The outage was really minimized. The guys did a great job. We got, what was the crane company that came to?
I'm not sure. Madison Smith.
Yeah, and they called them at like 5 in the morning, and they showed up, within 45 minutes, and it really went well. But now we have when we determined the transformer was what failed, we need to replace it. So what we would like to do is to get it on order as soon as possible, as soon as we go through our bidding process. Items over 20,000 are subject, to board approval, which is obviously a good way to do it. So I'm not sure how we want to handle this, but we don't have all of the bids yet. It sounds like we got one for 35,000, which is high, it sounds like to me, but we do need to get it on order once we have, at least 3 bids and so on.
All right. I'll make a motion that we authorize the purchase of a 1,500 kilowatt KVA at the best price we can negotiate.
We just keep one of those on the shelf.
Yeah, well, and the 2,500 that failed, 2,500 failed, we replaced it with a 1,500, and it's fine. The 1,500 is fine. The 2,500 is also going to get refurbished, so we'll have a 2,500 and a 1,500 in stock to cover probably, it's between 7 and 10 transformers out there of this size. So we'll have 2 replacements, which will be fine.
Do they wear out? What happens to them when they?
Yeah, in this case, the winding on the B phase apparently failed because we were getting 150 volts where we should have gotten 277 once we disconnected everything and re-energized the transformer and measured the secondary side. The B phase was only 156 volts instead of being 277. So the winding must have failed. It's hard to say exactly what happened until it gets torn apart. So.
I'll second Chairman's.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, superintendent's report. So also in your packet is the fuel cost adjustment for January. It's going to go up to 2.481 cents per kilowatt hour, and that's up from 2.354 cents per kilowatt hour. So a modest increase, but it's been trending upward. Part of that's definitely the seasonality aspect with natural gas and things like that. We should see it start to trend down later in the spring, but that's what the fuel cost adjustment will be for January. And then I also, in your packet is the November trouble outage report. Basically 10 outages in November. And the second is the cause. Of course, it's animals are the biggest culprit. There was 6 out of the 10 were caused by animals. And 1 was an equipment failure, and 2 were trees, and 3 were unknown. So, which adds up to 12. Oh no, I'm sorry. The trees were 0. My mistake. I'm like, that doesn't add up to 10. So trees were 0, and not 2 was last year, and equipment was 1. Unknown was 3, and varmints were 6. So that was the 10 outages. And last month we reported that it was 15 outages in October. So November tends to be a little more tame as the leaves are coming down off the trees.
The outage that we had as a result of the tornado.
Yeah, so the next thing on my list to talk about is just the storm damage report. In our case here, the city of Glasgow and the Glasgow GEPB system came through it virtually unscathed. However, we were off on Friday night for close to 4 hours as the 2 towers right outside of East Glasgow, or East Bowling Green substation, were affected. They were on the ground, and we had, as we had talked about in an earlier meeting, we were being fed radially from East Bowling Green because they were TVA is bringing online a new substation called, down by Fox Hollow, called South Glasgow. And it's to support TVA's system, or I'm sorry, to support East Kentucky's system. And they had us basically offline over on our East Glasgow substation for roughly the past 2 months. Just during this time frame where the last couple weeks, that bring it over from the existing structures to the new South Glasgow substation. And so for the 2 months prior to that, there was a chance that we could probably get it back online in 4 hours if we really had to. When the tornado hit, there was no chance of getting that line back on because the structures were starting to come down, and we were probably closed the switch down at Gorin Park, and we had, when we figured out that we weren't going to be able to get the line coming back from East Bowling Green because those structures were down, we started the process of talking with East Kentucky Power. And we had about 25 megawatts that we needed to bring on. And they said, yeah, looks like we have probably 50 megawatts of capacity, so just don't bring it on all at once. And so we started the process of slowly shifting the city's power source from TVA to East Kentucky Power. And that whole process probably started an hour and a half into the outage and was completed, maybe 3 or 3.5 hours into the outage. And once we did that, there were a few things to clean up with the cable system. But we didn't even have any secondary outages, just meaning, a single customer. And so we really came through it in great shape. So as a result, on Saturday, we started to communicate with Bowling Green to find out if they needed any resources. Well, we didn't, as the sun rose on Saturday, we started to understand what had really happened, When we were out of power on Friday night, we had no idea of what had happened.
Yeah.
But we had sent a couple of guys to start patrolling TVA's line because they didn't know what was going on. They tried to close back in. They said, there's no chance it's going to hold. It just immediately trips. So, and they said, we don't have any people right immediately in that vicinity to start patrolling it, so if you guys could help. So we had a crew go to Bowling Green, and we had a crew start in Haywood, and we, started to patrol the line. And the guys that went to Bowling Green said, yeah, this isn't good. So we started
going back tonight.
So we started it wasn't going to go back online, so we started the process of converting over to East Kentucky, and it went great. And so we were there until Wednesday, and then on this past Wednesday, we shifted back to TVA because they got South Glasgow. They put all the resources to get South Glasgow back up and running, so we were able to be fed from Summer Shade direction instead of Bowling Green direction. So it's a lot of places and things, but so we were fortunate.
Yeah,
and,
we were.
Yeah, our crews have been working in Bowling Green then since Sunday, and today they were no longer needed. So Bowling Green has, I guess, most of everybody that they can bring back on is back on, other than those homes that need to be rebuilt. So. And
thank you so much to the guys that went to Bowling Green and worked.
Yeah, they did.
Past week. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, and they were. It was a really good experience they learned a lot of the, just storm trouble is one of the best places to learn. It's also dangerous, but it's a lot is learned when you're working in storm trouble. So.
David, I talked just briefly about the storm, and my comment was that the public has really no idea what goes on behind. And his response was, and that's how it should be. That's our objective. Mm-hmm. But I'm just curious when these other teams come in from all over, like during the ice storms that we had here in Glasgow, do they all know what to do, or is there somebody directing everybody?
So
how does that work?
Yeah, and on Saturday when I was talking to them, the Bowling Green team was like, we we have no idea what we're dealing with yet. Let's plan on your crews coming over here on Sunday.
Okay.
So on Saturday, they were in the process of organizing themselves. And then what they did is they had, at least in the case that I know about, it's called a bird dog. It's the person that is really kind of going out front and seeing and guiding the crew from out of the area. So in the case of the bird dog that led the Glasgow cruise, it was a retired Bowling Green lineman. That was great. Our guys just learned from him and were impressed by the way that he was able to analyze, that particular project that they were going to tackle that day, and work safely. Doing the tailgate meetings and making sure that things were ready on both ends. The grounds were in place. When a line when you're working it dead, you can't assume that it's dead. They ground it so that it's pretty much, then you're guaranteed it's dead. And they still usually work it like it's hot. But if it's grounded, there's no real good chance of it being energized by mistake. And so that was that's the process that they use, is they find these basically team leaders to lead these crews from outside the area that know the system, know where to go and know who to
Commend everybody for doing a spectacular job.
Yeah, I agree.
Keeping us in good shape.
To that point, into Libby's, definitely a thanks to the guys that went to Bowling Green, but also those that stayed behind here and picked up the slack. So it was a good team effort. And
Are there any financial issues involving where the power came from and that at this point?
No, the way that'll work is that TVA will work with East Kentucky and will basically pay the rate that we would have paid to TVA. TVA as our power provider will take the middle role.
Let's go back a minute. So the new substation that you were talking about.
South Glasgow.
South Glasgow, yeah. So what, I guess I'm trying to ask, just so I know, did that have anything to do with when Eastern Kentucky Power, I believe it was, had asked TVA a year and a half, 2 years ago, to hook into their 169 kV line because of their reliability issues in the county? Okay.
I would say that's exactly what it is.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that's what,
I can get more details on that for you, but that's exactly what it's for, is to support East Kentucky.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a year and a half, my time runs together on this
Right.
board.
It's been longer than that, I think, but we'll also benefit from it. We had to shift our system around at the meantime, but we'll also benefit from it.
Yeah.
But because of voltage support in this area will be better now.
Well, I know there really wasn't any discussion after that about that, so I'm actually glad that is coming to fruition, so that people out in the county have more reliability thanks to TVA. So.
Yeah, it's basically, for all practical purposes, it's done. Well, it's not completely done. East Kentucky has work to do yet before they do the final close in. So, but yeah. Anything else on the storm damage discussion? All right. Moving on to the results of the bond sale. So I think it occurred after our last meeting when we had the call with Moody's, and as a result of that call and them looking at our books, we had a rating upgrade from A3 to A2, which was really, it was good news. And a lot of that had to do with the improved cash position and also just the business in general. So that was a good ratings increase. And so as a result, when the bond sale was done, we expected to pay or get bond rates of roughly 2.25%, 2.25%. And I think the average rate that we ended up was 1.933%. So it's quite a savings over the course of the life of these bonds.
Awesome.
So, so that was really good news. I don't know if there's any other questions or comments on that. Mark is the resident
I
expert.
would assume that it still makes sense to have bonds insured, though.
I don't think so. I don't think we, no.
Yeah, I don't think they did bond
No.
insurance.
And it would have been our
Because
cost
of the
anyway.
upgrade. Good deal, that's even
Yeah.
even better.
Even better, saves more money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much cost is there associated with the insurance?
I don't remember how much it was. They
Yeah.
talked about from a A3 rating that it would, the interest would be about 15 basis points higher, I believe is what they said, to Baird people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I don't recall what the cost was. If I said a number, I'd just be guessing, so I won't do that. But